which is one of the great koan collections, means a gateless gate. This case is entitled, Ordinary Mind is the Way. And it involves two of the great figures in Zen history, Master Joshu and Master Nansen. At this time, however, Joshu was a student of Master Nansen. And one day he earnestly asked Nansen, "What is the way?" Nansen answered, "The ordinary mind is the way." And Joshu asked, "Should I direct myself toward it or not?" And Nansen said, "If you try to turn toward it, you go against it." So Joshu, of course, utterly mixed up, said, "If I do not try to turn toward it, how can I know that it is the way?" And Nansen answered, "The way does not belong to knowing or not knowing. Knowing is delusion. Not knowing is a blank consciousness. When you have really reached the true way beyond all doubt, you will find it as vast and boundless as outer space." At these words, Joshu was suddenly enlightened. Now, about this case, there is a verse. The spring flowers, the moon in autumn, the cool breezes of summer, the winter snow. If idle concerns do not cloud the mind, this is man's happiest season. I think I prefer the translation of Shibayama to the last two lines. He says, "If there is no vain cloud in your mind, for you it is a good season. Spring, summer, autumn, whatever. If there is no vain cloud in your mind, for you it is a good season." Now, these are ancient words, and with all the confusion that this sort of thing usually engenders in us. See, there's a lot of nonsense about the way. I mean, it's something we're going to get to know, we think. Because knowing is delusion. Not knowing is a blank consciousness. It's not a question of knowing or not knowing something. The verse makes it more clear. If there is no vain cloud in your mind, for you it is a good season. If there's no vain cloud on your mind, today is a good day. If there's no vain cloud in your mind, no matter what this day is for you, whether from the standpoint of our usual concerns, it's a happy day, an unhappy day, a distressing day, a boring day. If there's no vain cloud in your mind, for you it is a good season. Ordinary mind is the way. We could just say ordinary life is the way, or ordinary is the way. That's all life is, just this absolute moment. From a human point of view, that can be lifting a coffee cup, balancing your checkbook, talking to your girlfriend. It's just what it is. Now, from our self-centered point of view, it seems as though we come and go. And in the ordinary sense, we do. But if we get this point, that there's just this absolute moment of being, which is what we avoid with all our might, then these questions fade away. There's no problem. If there's no vain cloud in your mind, for you, it is a good season. I was saying to some of the new people, you know, it's very rare that we can just sit and just be ourselves for 20 seconds. That means having no vain cloud in your mind, just sitting here. But we do have a vain cloud in our mind, because we don't understand this basic fact that life at any second, in any gesture and in any act, is absolute. The absolute and the relative are not two different things. We're not suddenly going to find some mysterious place where all our troubles disappear. See, that mysterious place is simply what? Just this very second. See, anyone who truly gets what it's to live like that does not worry about anything. If you can just be the second, we know, and without any intellectual or non-intellectual effort, what our life truly is. We can think of a great life that is life and death. At the same time, it transcends life and death. But to think that it's something other than just what we are at this very second is where we get into trouble. Then we are ceaselessly leaving this moment to look somewhere else. And we'll never, never find it. Trying to think about it, figure it out. There is no vain cloud in your mind. For you, it is a good season. It is a good day. As human beings, we want relief from this life that seems to bother us. We want relief from our present worries, difficulties, and the people that mistreat us, or so we think. We want relief. We want to find some place other than this. I've said it 1,000 times and in 1,000 ways. But this life that transcends life and death is nothing but what? Just whatever you're doing. And also whether you like it or not. Now, I don't always get this. But sometimes I do. And we get it more often and more quickly the more years we practice. So some of you are quite new to practice. Some of you have been sitting for many years. But it's always hard for us to get that it's just this. And that this may not be what we had in mind. So I want each one of you to think in your life right now, what is it that you don't want to be this? It's usually a person. Or it could be a situation composed of persons. It could be something that's difficult for us to do or distasteful. It could be being tired when we don't want to be tired. We're sick when we don't want to be sick. If it's who you are at this very second, that is it. Now, the difficulty of practice is that's not what we want to hear. We want obvious comfort. As a nation, we're slowly going downhill because we're geared only to looking for what? Immediate, obvious comfort. And there's nothing wrong in comfort per se, I'm not saying that. But it's the search for it. Feeling that somewhere, somehow, it exists if I could just find it. It's already here, right now. Whatever you feel and are, that's it. What are you looking for? You're always looking for something. Got a sore knee that I banged? That's it. Just that sensation itself. You can say a sore knee isn't very significant. See, who said this had to be anything? See? Of course it's not significant, it's just what? Sore knee. When you have really reached the true way beyond all doubt, sore knee, you will find it as vast and boundless as outer space. What do they mean that? Vast and boundless. As outer space, it means it has no space or time at all. It just hurts. That's all. How can that be talked about on a level of right and wrong? It's not right or wrong, it's just what? Just there. At these words, Joshu was suddenly enlightened. He got it. Should I direct myself toward it or not? See, Joshu, what do I do? See, where'll I go? If you try to turn towards it, if you're trying to find it, if you're trying to look for it, you go against it. You'll never find it. See, my sore knee is already what? It's here. There's nothing I have to know about that. What would I know? Knowing is delusion. Not knowing is just a blank consciousness. Idle concerns do not cloud the mind. This is man's happiest season. What is man's happiest season? Whatever season it is, right this second. Whatever we are, right this second. See, the whole point, begin to see what practice is. And then we do it. How many times? In a way, there's only one time, but to us it looks like 10,000 times. See, this way, the Tao, it sounds so special, doesn't it? Nothing special. And yet, understanding this as we do, if we practice patiently over time, life is very different for us. And for many of you, I see that happening. And for me, I see it happening. You think I'm not practicing, think again. Things that bother me. They do, though. The only difference is I know they're my practice. I'm not going to try to blame somebody else for them. See, the main thing we're always battling is we don't think that this could be it. We think it has to be somewhere else. Nobody thinks, I know your knees hurt. Nobody thinks that's it. Of course it's it. See, there's nothing to get. This is what I'm trying to tell you. The fact that we think there's something to get that keeps us so miserable. That there is a solution for our life, but you are your life. You don't have to have a solution. There's only one thing that's necessary in practice. Only one thing. And that is the open experience of what is usually the body without anything else interfering. To be able to sit and just be nothing but that sensation. See, that sounds simple. Not so simple, because human beings don't want to do it. There's no you in that experiencing. See, if there's a shadow of a self-identification type thought, then nothing happens. No healing occurs. No transformation occurs. No check takes place on that ego-centered anger. Unless you understand this, all the other fancy talk about practice can be just a waste of time. Just to sit and what sensation are we talking about? Doesn't matter. As long as it's in the present moment. I'm not saying to fixate on the muscle. That's not what I'm talking about. Just an open allowing and just nothing in the world but that. Nothing. Which doesn't mean the thoughts may not float through, but no attachment to them. Even 2 or 3 seconds changes your life. And the longer we sit over the years, the reason it's easier, of course, is we begin to at last lose some of our interest in this drama that unfolds out of our mind, this noise that we like to manufacture constantly. See, slowly our hope, which means that we're generating that, our hope for ourselves, that something or someone or something's going to take care of it somehow. So we think. As that begins to weaken our ability to just sit, 20 seconds, a minute, with mature practice, almost indefinite. It doesn't mean the thoughts don't come up, kind of float through. They don't distract this central, John Klein calls it, state of not knowing, just allowing, just being. Simplest thing in the world. And it's the basis of all transformation. And when it's firmly established, then life springs out of that, instead of out of our attempts in our little mind to figure everything out. Then we just naturally do, function, and it's never complete. Certainly not complete for me, but at least more complete than it used to be. That's all we can ever say. See, until it is fairly strong at least, we're not really living. We are potentially living, but we're not actually living. And who wants to die and think, I've never lived? See, all abuse, all complaint, all yelling at somebody else comes out of a space of insecurity and fear. Fear for this little self, see? As long as we operate out of this kind of thinking, we're very reactive, very quick to anger, very quick to put it out there. And frankly, without the slightest interest in what we're doing. Friendships get broken, marriages get broken, partnerships get broken, organizations function poorly, children grow up with highly reactive parents. Somewhere that chain has to be broken. Now every time you can sit for 10 seconds, absolute stillness, which isn't an effort, it's an allowing. Then it's like a knife that begins to cut through that wall we have around us. And that wall, of course, is not real because it's composed of our illusions. Nevertheless, it acts as a wall. Now sometimes a certain amount of practice, sometimes circumstances, sometimes, well, it could be a lot of things. We'll cut through that wall for a second. And we have a glimpse of what a free life is. Some people call that enlightenment. Not really. Only when the wall from years of just being in the space begins to get really porous, really transparent, then one day it shatters. Or at least mostly shatters. You don't want to get too carried away here. Now there's nothing we do when we sit that's wrong. Couldn't be wrong, because it is what is. But without this slow increase of being able to just be the sensation, because the sensation is what life is. If that doesn't take place, then our life remains potential, actual. And who wants that? I want to say again what it is. And people say, oh yeah, I'm experiencing my body. I doubt it. As human beings, we don't want to stay with this at all. The minute you become the sensation, totally surrender to it. You've disappeared. And the whole focus of our life isn't to disappear, but to glorify ourselves, increase it. And I sense that I'm important, I'm wonderful. Of course you're wonderful, but not in that sense. It's the last thing human beings want to do. But at least we can understand it, and we can be sure that we understand in our sitting that, well, maybe this sitting period, maybe a few seconds at least, see? Not as a goal, but as a surrendering for a little bit to just what is. It's boring from the ordinary point of view. Couldn't be boring, though, if there weren't a faint thought twined around it. Boredom is thinking. Without that self-centered thought, I don't know, I want to do this. Without that, not boring. Since there's no you there, what is it? The old Dharma talks is saying the same thing. All I can do is to keep making the central point that somebody here is going to hear today. Maybe you didn't hear it a month ago, but maybe today you can hear it. And we keep, all of us, including myself, going ahead with this work. That's what our life is for. So we don't have a potential life, we have an actual life. And time is short. None of us knows how many more days we have. I want to talk a little bit today about the sitting process itself. Now, somebody said to me the other day, calling on the phone, well, what techniques do you do at your center? See, as far as I'm concerned, we don't do any techniques. Now, for some of you, and for any of you that want to try it, if you want to count your breath or do something like that, a slightly concentrated practice for the first 5-10 minutes of sitting, okay, that's a technique. But that's not what sitting is. Sitting isn't about a technique. Sitting is about being that which we always are, which is awareness, pure awareness. And that's all it is. There's nothing else. Awareness of what? Awareness of everything. Awareness of the external environment, what we call the internal environment, or our body, which includes the breath. The breath isn't more important than anything else. That's just awareness. When thoughts come up, they're just little energy fields that are blipping around. And there's nothing wrong with them because they're what are happening. The only thing we get into trouble there is if we identify with them and make them into something special. And we all do that without exception. There's no one who doesn't get caught in his or her thoughts. So there's nothing that we're doing except maintaining awareness. Now sounds simple, and actually we can do it usually for about 10 seconds. Extremely difficult. For one thing, it doesn't interest us. See, I don't know how many people come. Invariably, when they're told what sitting is, they come in. You know, Joko, I think this is boring. And it is boring from the user point of view. It's extremely boring to just sit here. And that's what sitting is. Just to sit. And since all the senses are open, what do? You don't shut them up. If you shut your ears, you won't hear, but they're open, so you'll hear whatever there is to hear. You'll feel in your body whatever there is to feel. The nose is used less, but if it gets close to lunchtime, we smell whatever's cooking, and then of course we have thoughts onto that, which need to be noticed. There's nothing in sitting except maintaining awareness. Now, our ability to do that is what grows over time. You can call that progress if you want, but basically we're just returning to what we've always been. Really, nothing special about it. So any idea that there's something special about sitting, that we have to get in some spiritual state or some wonderful state or some state of special clarity or depth, that's not it. Now, as you're sitting, if you really maintain awareness, which you probably won't, but if you do, it feels so different from what we ordinarily do. We may think we've done something special, but not really. And I want to emphasize, since there are many people here doing different things, that sitting is not about shutting out your thoughts. It's about seeing them as thoughts of no importance whatsoever. But I don't know of anyone in here that doesn't think his or her thoughts are of some importance, including me sometimes. We definitely don't see our thoughts as just being empty energy little splits that just, for whatever reason, are set off. We take them seriously. When we take them seriously, we create emotion, false emotion. We don't understand all that. Our life is ruled by false emotion. We don't get around to living at all. The thing this practice is about is separating thought from bodily sensation. Now, classic Zen often does it by suppressing the thought, so you're just left with bodily sensation. It doesn't work very well. If we haven't seen through our thoughts, the minute we're off the cushion, they come popping back just as strong as ever. That's why, from my point of view, a concentration practice leads to mischief. I haven't seen it yet lead to anything else. Now, concentration can be used, as I said, at the beginning of a period. If you're just all over the place, it will settle you down. But it's not a practice. It's a device. It's a technique. And real practice is not a device or a technique. It's about simply sitting there. Now, as I said, we don't want to simply sit there. Because see, as long as we're human, we're always looking for something. We're waiting for something. What are we waiting for? Anybody? We're waiting for the time which will be what? Perfect. What else? What other adjectives could we use? Peaceful. Okay. What else?
Better.
Better. Okay. What else? Yes. Different. Okay. What else? Pleasurable. What else? Happy. And then, sort of coming out of all those, we're waiting for the time when I have some importance in the world. I really get somewhere. I'm not saying anything wrong with getting somewhere. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm talking about what we're doing in our life. So when we're given the instruction to simply sit there, well, that goes over for about 20 seconds, and then we begin. Because the human drive is to get somewhere and to fix up this life that's obviously not quite right. And people say, but I'm here for enlightenment, okay? When you can sit with what is for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, uninterrupted, your question will vanish. So don't bring me that question. What I'm interested in is what goes on with you so that you're always looking for something as opposed to just sitting here. We're not looking, we're waiting for something at the same time. Waiting for what? This wonderful light that doesn't seem to have shown up yet. You know, Joko, if I could just have that man, it would be all right. Or that woman, whatever. Then I know. Then my practice would be all right. But see, I'm so upset. Waiting for something. Or I'm so lonely. Waiting for what? Waiting for the time when for some reason you're not going to be lonely. Waiting for, what else do we wait for? Security. When I have enough money, then my practice can begin. When I have enough anything, enough kids. Some people just go on producing children. I mean, it's interesting. Nothing wrong with that in itself. It'd be great to have 10 kids, but not if you're doing it because you're waiting for something. And we all are waiting for something. Waiting for the time when life will be fair. Forget it. It's never going to be fair. Life isn't fair. Everyone looks very miserable. Well, you look at what you're waiting for. What are you personally waiting for? What are you waiting for? Huh? To be found. Okay, who's going to find you? Okay. We all have our own little twist to this, and it's a miserable job when I retire. Then when you retire, what are you waiting for? That's a more complicated one, okay? Right. Waiting for something. See, when I get established in my profession, when I get tenure, then it's all going to begin. When I lose 10 pounds, it's all going to begin. Waiting. And it's because we're doing that that we have a great aversion to just sitting here. Waste my time like that. Let's see, I have to think. Off we go. We view just sitting here as being what? It's a waste of time. I'm not accomplishing anything. If you truly accomplish anything, you're just doing, right here, doing, right here, doing.